What's up, everybody? So today we've got a wedding story, and if you've been on this channel long enough, you know that wedding stories on here are never just about the wedding. This one's about a guy who spent 8 months planning his dream wedding, booked the venue, paid the deposit, coordinated everything. Then his parents called and said his cousin just got engaged and can't afford her own venue, and demanded he share his wedding venue with his cousin. What happened next involves a non-transferable contract, a family group chat meltdown of biblical proportions, empty seats at the ceremony, and a grandkid that changed everything. This is unreal. Let's get into it. My parents demanded I share my wedding venue with my cousin who can't afford her own. I had a non-transferable contract. They boycotted my wedding. A year later, they were begging to meet their grandchild. I honestly never thought I'd be posting something like this. I'm not a drama person. I go to work, come home, watch sports, make dinner, and go to bed. That's my life. But what my family pulled in the last year has been so ridiculous that I need to get it out before it eats me alive. My name's Connor. I'm 30. I work as a project analyst for an architectural firm in the Midwest. Not the exciting part of architecture, more like the spreadsheets and timelines part, but it pays well, and I'm good at it. My fiance, now wife, is Riley. She's 28, works as a dental hygienist, and she's the most organized human being I've ever met. Riley plans things the way generals plan campaigns. Color-coded folders, spreadsheet trackers, backup plans for the backup plans. When we got engaged, I knew the wedding planning was going to be a military operation. I was correct. We got engaged in March of last year. We set the date for November. Tight timeline, I know, but Riley doesn't mess around. Within 2 weeks, she had a venue shortlist, a caterer comparison chart, and a Pinterest board with 472 pins. I mostly just showed up where she told me to show up and said, "That looks great," when she asked my opinion. I'm not ashamed of this. I know my strengths. My strength in this situation was staying out of the way and handling the budget. The venue was the big one. Riley had her heart set on this converted barn property about 40 minutes from town, Holloway Farms. If you've seen one of those renovated barn wedding venues on Instagram, you know the vibe. Exposed beams, string lights, big sliding doors that open to a field, a ceremony lawn with an arch. It was gorgeous. It was also expensive. But we'd been saving specifically for the wedding for 2 years. Separate account, automatic deposits every paycheck, and we had the budget. Holloway had a 14-month wait list. 14 months. But by some miracle, they had a cancellation for a Saturday in November that happened to be our preferred date. Riley got the call on a Tuesday afternoon, and I swear she nearly broke the sound barrier, getting to the venue to put down the deposit. $8,000. Non-refundable. Non-transferable. Those words were bolded and underlined on the contract. We signed it, paid it, and spent the next 8 months planning around that date and that venue. Everything was going smoothly. We booked the caterer, Riley's second choice but first choice in terms of value. She ran a cost per plate analysis. I'm not kidding. We booked the photographer, a friend of Riley's sister named Jordan, who was trying to build a portfolio and gave us a deal in exchange for being able to use the photos on her website. We booked the DJ, a guy named Dustin, who came recommended by 3 different couples we knew. He sent us a playlist questionnaire that was 4 pages long. Riley filled it out in 1 sitting. I contributed "Don't Stop Believin'" because that's my only musical opinion. We ordered the save the dates, sent them out, got RSVPs rolling in. The guest list was 120 people. Manageable? Perfect. My parents RSVP'd yes almost immediately. My mom even texted Riley and said, "So excited for the big day. Let me know if you need any help." Riley said, "We're all set, but thank you." Everything felt right. For about 3 weeks. Then my mom called. "I want you to remember the 'so excited for the big day' text. Hold on to it, because the energy shift that's about to happen is whiplash level." And then my mom called. "Hold on. This is me, not Connor. I need to set expectations here because I've read enough of these stories to know what's coming. When a parent calls about a wedding that's been planned for 8 months with a 'can we talk about something,' it's never good. It's never, 'can we contribute to the flower budget?' It's always some unhinged request that would make a wedding planner quit on the spot. And based on the title of this story, I have a feeling Connor's mom is about to ask him to do something so wildly entitled that the venue itself would file a restraining order. I'm calling this one before it happens. Connor's family is about to go full Princess Entitlement, the wedding edition. Buckle up. My mom, I'll call her Diane because that's not her name, called me on a Wednesday evening in August, 3 months before the wedding. She started with small talk, which is always suspicious because my mom doesn't do small talk. She asked about work. She asked about Riley. She asked about the wedding planning. Then she said, "So Connor, I need to talk to you about something. Your cousin Ashley got engaged last weekend." I said, "Congratulations. That's great." She said, "The thing is, Ashley and Kyle don't have a lot of money right now. They've been looking at venues and everything and their budget is not great. Your father and I were talking and we had an idea." I felt my stomach drop. I literally felt it. Like that moment on a roller coaster where gravity gives up. She said, "What if Ashley and Kyle had their ceremony at Holloway too? Maybe the day before yours? Or even the morning of? The venue's big enough. They could use the same decorations. It would save them so much money. And it would be a beautiful family moment." I was quiet for a long time. Long enough that my mom said, "Connor, you there?" I said, "Mom, that's not possible." She said, "Why not? It's a big property." I said, "Because the venue contract is exclusive. We booked the entire venue for the entire weekend. No other events can be held during our reservation. It's non-transferable and non-shareable. It's in the contract." She said, "Well, can't you talk to them about it? Explain the family situation?" I said, "Mom, we paid $8,000 for exclusive use of that venue. I'm not going to call them and ask if my cousin can piggyback on our wedding." This is where it went from annoying to absurd. My mom said, and I want to make sure I'm quoting this right because it's burned into my brain, "Connor, family comes first. Ashley is like a sister to you. You need to think about what's more important, a contract or your family." A contract. The contract I signed, that I paid for, with my money, that I saved for 2 years, for my wedding, to my wife. That's the thing she wanted me to rethink. I told her no. Firmly, politely. But no, she was not happy. She said she was disappointed in me and that she'd expected more generosity from the man she raised. Then she hung up. That was Wednesday. By Friday, my phone had exploded. Pause for a second. For the listeners, this is me, not Connor. I need to break down what just happened. His mother asked him to share his wedding venue, a venue he's been planning around for 8 months, that his fiancée has been coordinating like a 4-star general, that they paid $8,000 to book exclusively, with his cousin. Because the cousin can't afford her own venue. That's like asking someone to share their hospital bed during surgery, because your cousin also needs an operation and the waiting room is too crowded. Can't you just scoot over? She's family. This is entitlement that would make royalty blush. And the fact that mom pivoted to family comes first. The second she heard no, that's manipulator playbook page 1. When they can't get what they want, they question your character. Classic princess entitlement energy. And the group chat? Oh, it's about to get ugly. Friday's phone situation was chaos. My Aunt Linda, Ashley's mom, sent me a text that said, "Connor, I heard you're not willing to help Ashley. I'm very hurt." My Uncle Rob, who I barely talked to, sent a message saying I was being selfish about a building. My cousin Ashley herself, and this one stung because we actually were close growing up, sent me a long text about how she'd always dreamed of a venue like Holloway and that she understood it was a big ask, but that it would mean the world to her. Meanwhile, Riley was dealing with her own version of the fallout. My mom had called Riley's mom. They'd met once at a dinner party and tried to recruit her into the pressure campaign. Riley's mom, God bless this woman, listened politely and then said, "Diane, my daughter and your son paid for that venue. If Ashley needs a venue, there are many lovely options that don't involve taking someone else's." My mom apparently responded, "It's not about taking, it's about sharing." Riley's mom said, "It's their wedding, not a potluck. I need to buy that woman flowers." She shut it down in 3 sentences. Riley also got a call from Ashley directly. Ashley was apologetic, but clearly had been coached. She kept using phrases like, It would mean so much. And I just want our families to celebrate together. Riley handled it with the precision of someone defusing a bomb. She said, "Ashley, I'm sure your wedding will be beautiful wherever it is. But Holloway is ours. We planned it. We paid for it. And we're not going to compromise the day we've been building for 8 months. I hope you understand." Ashley said she did. I'm not sure she did. But she backed off. My dad, who usually stays out of these things, called me Saturday morning. He said, "Son, I'm not taking sides, but your mother is very upset, and I think it would help if you considered some kind of compromise." I said, "Dad, what compromise? The contract doesn't allow other events. Even if I wanted to, I can't." He said, "Maybe talk to the venue. See if there's flexibility." I said, "There isn't. We specifically asked about that when we booked, because Riley wanted to make sure no one else would be on the property. That's the whole point of an exclusive booking." He went quiet and then said, "Well, your mother's going to be difficult about this." Understatement of the century. I tried one more time to reason with my mom. I went over to my parents' house on a Sunday, showed up unannounced, which I never do. My dad was in the garage working on something. My mom was in the kitchen. I sat down at the counter and said, "Mom, can we talk about this like adults?" She said, "I am talking about it like an adult. You're the one who's being rigid." I said, "Mom, I paid $8,000 for this venue. Riley and I have been planning for 8 months. We can't share it even if we wanted to. The contract is exclusive. This isn't about generosity. It's about what's legally and logistically possible." She said, "Contracts can be changed." I said, "Not this one. And even if it could be, Mom, it's our wedding, our day. Riley has dreamed about this for years. I'm not going to call the venue and ask them to squeeze in another event so my cousin can save money." She set down the dish towel she was holding and said, "Your father and I have done a lot for you over the years, Connor. And this is how you repay us?" That line broke something in me. Because the honest truth is, they hadn't done a lot for me. Not compared to what they'd done for Ashley's side of the family. Aunt Linda and Uncle Rob had been the beneficiaries of my parents' generosity for years, loaning them money, co-signing things, helping with Ashley's car. My parents had always prioritized that branch of the family, and now they were asking me to extend that priority to my own wedding day. That was the realization that settled into my chest like a stone. It wasn't about the venue. It was about me being expected to subsidize someone else's life, using the biggest day of mine. I left without resolving anything. Drove home. Told Riley what happened. She made us scrambled eggs and we ate them in silence. Sometimes silence is the only honest response. Over the next 2 weeks, my family applied what I can only describe as a full court pressure campaign. Group texts, individual calls. My grandmother, who's 84 and should not be dragged into venue disputes, called me and said, "Connor, can't you do this one thing for the family?" I love my grandmother. It was hard to say no to her, but I said no. The thing that really got to me about the group text was the tone. Nobody was asking. They were telling. Like my wedding was a community resource that the family had a right to allocate. You need to think about what's more important. You're being selfish about a building. I'm very hurt. Notice nobody said, "Hey Connor, we understand if you can't, but would it be possible?" Nobody asked. They demanded. And then they were offended when I treated the demand like what it was, unreasonable. Riley found me sitting on the back porch one evening reading through the text with this expression she later described as murder eyes. She sat down next to me, read a few of them, and said, "These people are unbelievable." Then she said, "Let me handle this." And God help anyone in her path, because Riley was furious. And when Riley is furious, she doesn't yell. She organizes. She pulled up the Holloway contract, highlighted every relevant clause, and emailed it to my mother with a polite note explaining the legal and financial constraints. My mother replied to Riley's email, to Riley directly, with 2 sentences. "This isn't about a contract. This is about what kind of person you want to be in this family." Riley showed me that email. Her face was something between disbelief and the cold calculation of a woman who was about to remove several names from a guest list. She said, "Connor, if your mother cannot respect our wedding, she doesn't need to be at it." I said, "Let's not go there yet." Riley said, "We're already there." She sent me there with that email. Riley is 5'2" and 115 pounds. She is also the most terrifying person I know when she's been disrespected. I say this with love and a healthy amount of fear. Wait. Mom sent Riley, the bride, the woman who has been planning this wedding with the precision of a moon landing, an email questioning what kind of person she wants to be? Oh, Diane. Diane. You just emailed a dental hygienist with 472 Pinterest pins and a spreadsheet for everything, including how many napkins go on each table. And you tried to guilt trip her? That's like poking a sleeping grizzly with a pool noodle. Riley is about to reorganize this family tree, and she's starting with the branches that don't contribute anything. Princess Entitlement just met her match, and her match has color-coded folders. I am genuinely scared for anyone whose name starts getting highlighted in yellow on Riley's spreadsheet. That means you're on the maybe list, and the maybe list becomes the no list real fast. After the email incident, Riley and I had a long conversation, a real one. We sat at the kitchen table. This was a Sunday afternoon. Ringo was asleep on the couch, the house was quiet, and we talked about what we actually wanted. Not what my family wanted. Not what Ashley wanted. What we wanted. For our wedding. We decided on 3 things. First, the venue stays as booked. Non-negotiable. We'd paid for it, planned for it, and no amount of family guilt was going to change a legal contract that we signed in good faith. Second, we would not disinvite anyone. The guest list stayed the same. If people chose not to come because of the venue dispute, that was their decision. We weren't going to punish anyone for having opinions, even bad ones. Third, and this was the hard one, if my parents chose to boycott the wedding, we would respect that choice and move forward without them. I called my mom that evening and laid it out. I said, "Mom, the venue is booked, it's paid for, and it's not changing. You and Dad are welcome and wanted at the wedding. But if you choose not to come, I'll understand. Either way, I love you." She said, "I can't support this, Connor." I said, "That's your choice." She hung up. I sat on the couch and Ringo came over and put his head on my knee. Dogs know. They always know. I scratched behind his ears and said, "Looks like we're doing this without them, buddy." He didn't respond because he's a dog, but he stayed on my knee for a solid 20 minutes. Good dog. Riley came in from the kitchen and saw my face. She said, "She's not coming?" I said, "She said she can't support it." Riley nodded once, that single crisp nod she does, when she's processing something and filing it into the appropriate folder in her brain. She said, "Then we'll have the best wedding anyone's ever seen, and she'll find out about it from the photos." That was the plan. And honestly, that's what happened. My dad called me the next morning and said he was stuck in the middle and that he'd try to work on my mom. 2 weeks went by, then 3, then a month. Every time I checked in, my dad would say, "She's still upset." At some point, I stopped checking in. Ashley, to her credit, did eventually text me and say she was sorry for the pressure. She said she'd found another venue, a community center that was fine, and that she'd make it work. I told her I was happy for her, and that I hoped it would be beautiful. And I meant it. I genuinely want Ashley to have a good wedding. I want her and Kyle to be happy. My issue was never with Ashley. It was with the adults in the room who decided my wedding was a resource to be divided up like leftover pizza at a family gathering. Ashley was caught in the middle of other people's entitlement. She handled it better than most of them. I don't have a problem with Ashley. She's not the villain here. She asked for something she couldn't have, and when she didn't get it, she moved on. That's mature. My parents could learn something. The wedding was November 15th. Holloway Farms was everything Riley had envisioned. The weather cooperated, cool but clear, no rain, sunset lighting through the barn doors. 120 people were invited. 97 came. My parents were not among them. Neither was Aunt Linda or Uncle Rob. My grandmother came. God bless her. She took a car service 40 minutes to get there and sat in the front row with her purse on her lap and cried through the whole ceremony. She told Riley afterward, "You look like an angel, dear. My grandson is very lucky." Riley hugged her so hard I thought she'd break a rib. I need to tell you about the morning of the wedding, because it was the moment where everything crystallized. I was getting ready at the venue's groom suite, a little room off the main barn with a mirror and a couch. Jake was there, and 2 other groomsmen. We were putting on ties and making jokes, and trying to pretend it was a normal morning. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad. It said, "Thinking of you today. Love, Dad." That was it. No, "I'm coming." No, "I changed her mind." Just thinking of you. I stared at that text for a while. Jake noticed and said, "You good?" I said, "Yeah." I wasn't, but I was going to be. I walked down the hall to the main barn and saw Riley through the glass doors. She was standing at the far end of the aisle in her dress, talking to her maid of honor, laughing about something. The light was coming through the barn doors behind her. I know it sounds like a movie. It felt like one. And in that moment, the empty seats didn't matter. Nothing mattered except getting to the end of that aisle. The day was perfect. I danced with Riley to a song we'd picked together. I can't dance. She knew this going in. She married me anyway. Dustin the DJ played all the right songs. The caterer nailed it. The photographer got shots that still make me tear up when I look at them. And yeah, there were empty seats. My parents' seats. My aunt and uncle's seats. I noticed them during the ceremony. I noticed them during dinner. I noticed them during the first dance. But I also noticed my grandmother dabbing her eyes with a napkin, and my buddy Jake giving a best man speech that had the whole room laughing. And Riley, looking at me across the table, like I was the only person in the building. The empty seats mattered, but the full ones mattered more. Yo, he got married without his parents there because they boycotted over a venue for his cousin. Let that sink in. Actually, no, I'm not allowed to say that. Let me rephrase. Think about that for a second. His parents skipped their son's wedding because he wouldn't let his cousin use his venue for free. That's not a parenting decision. That's a hostage negotiation that failed. And instead of accepting the loss, they burned the embassy. Meanwhile, Grandma, 84 years old, took a car service 40 minutes to be there. Grandma showed up. Grandma sat in the front row. Grandma cried happy tears while her own daughter sulked at home. When your 84-year-old mother has more emotional maturity than you do, it might be time to reevaluate some things, Diane. Just a thought. I want to mention one more thing about the wedding day. After the reception, when most people had gone home, Riley and I walked out to the ceremony lawn. Just us. The string lights were still on. The arch was still standing. She took her shoes off and stood in the grass and said, "We did it." I said, "Yeah, we did." She said, "No regrets?" I said, "Not a single one." She said, "Me neither." And then she said, "Your grandmother was the best part of today." And she was right. Grandma Eleanor sitting in that front row crying into her napkin, refusing to let family drama stop her from being there for her grandson's wedding. That was the most important thing that happened that day. Not the venue, not the food, not the DJ, just an 84-year-old woman who showed up because showing up is what love looks like. After the wedding, things were cold. My parents didn't call for 3 weeks. I didn't call them either. Riley and I went on our honeymoon, 5 days in the mountains, no cell service, bliss, and came back to normal life. Started settling into being married, which honestly isn't that different from being engaged, except the paperwork is more official. And Riley now has strong opinions about towel folding that I didn't know about before. Aunt Linda sent me a message about a month after the wedding, saying the family dinner at Thanksgiving wouldn't feel right if I was there. I told her I wasn't planning to come anyway. That stung, but I'd made my peace with it. Riley and I did Thanksgiving at home, just us, Ringo, and a turkey that was slightly overcooked because I got distracted watching the game. The turkey was still good. Riley said it had character. She's kind. Christmas was quiet. Riley and I exchanged gifts on Christmas morning. She got me a new watch. Nothing crazy, just a clean, everyday one. And I got her a necklace with a small pendant that matched her engagement ring. We made breakfast together, played with Ringo, watched a movie. It was the most peaceful Christmas I'd had in years, honestly. No family drama, no passive-aggressive comments, no undercurrent of tension. Just us. I called my grandmother and wished her Merry Christmas. She said, "Merry Christmas, Connor. I wore the scarf you gave me." She'd been wearing it to church every Sunday since the wedding. I love that woman. I didn't call my parents. They didn't call me. It was the first Christmas I'd gone without talking to my mother. That's a weird milestone, not one you put on a greeting card. Then in February, we found out Riley was pregnant. I didn't tell my parents right away. I didn't tell them for about 3 weeks, actually. Riley and I wanted to sit with it for a while. Just the two of us knowing, sharing the secret, being excited together before the world got involved. When I finally called my mom, she picked up on the second ring. I hadn't called her in months. She said, "Connor?" Like she wasn't sure it was me. I said, "Mom, Riley's pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." Silence. Long silence. And then she started crying. Not the manipulative kind of crying. Not the "I'm hurt and I want you to know it" kind. The real kind. The kind where someone realizes they almost lost something they can't replace. She said, "Connor, I'm so sorry." She said it 3 times. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I didn't say it's okay because it wasn't okay. What I said was, "Mom, I love you, and I want you in my kid's life, but things have to be different." She said, "They will be. I promise." My dad called an hour later. He was quieter about it, the way dads are. He said, "Congratulations, son. Your mother and I would very much like to be part of this." I said, "I'd like that too." Final update. The baby came in October, a boy. We named him James, after Riley's grandfather, who passed a few years ago. He's healthy, loud, and has Riley's eyes and my inability to sleep through anything. My parents came to the hospital. My mom walked into the hospital room holding a gift bag and shaking slightly. She saw me holding James and her whole face changed. Whatever wall she'd built over the past year, the stubbornness, the principle, the "I can't support this," it crumbled in about 2 seconds. She walked over and I handed her the baby. She held him like he was made of glass. She whispered something to him that I couldn't hear. Then she looked at me and cried again. My dad stood by the window with his hands in his pockets and just watched. He looked 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him. I think the months apart aged him. It aged all of us. Riley was in the bed holding James when my mom walked in. I watched them look at each other, my wife and my mother, and something passed between them that I don't fully understand. Some kind of wordless acknowledgement. My mom said, "He's beautiful, Riley." Riley said, "Thank you, Diane." Not Mom, not Mrs. Anything. Diane. First name, equal footing. I think my mom understood what that meant. She nodded. We're rebuilding. Slowly. Sunday dinners have started again. At our house, not theirs. Because Riley wants to control the environment. She's right. My mom brought a casserole last week that was actually really good. She also brought a gift for the baby. A little stuffed bear with a ribbon on it. Simple, thoughtful, not expensive, not flashy. Just a bear. Different from the old Diane who would have shown up with a gift that was really a performance. The bear sits on James's dresser now. He stares at it during diaper changes. I think he likes it. Or he likes the ribbon, either way. My dad has been quieter about the reconciliation. He doesn't say much, he never did, but he shows up. He came over last Saturday morning and mowed our lawn without being asked. Just showed up with his mower in the back of his truck, cut the grass, put the mower back, and knocked on the door to say goodbye. I said, "Dad, you didn't have to do that." He said, "I know." And he left. That's my dad. He can't say I'm sorry, but he can mow a lawn at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. I'll take it. Aunt Linda hasn't apologized. I don't expect her to. Uncle Rob sent me a text around Christmas that said, "Happy holidays. Hope you're well." That's the closest I'll get from him. The extended family has largely moved on. People have short memories when it comes to other people's drama. The wedding venue dispute that consumed our lives for 3 months is barely a footnote in most of my relatives' minds. That's fine. It's not their story. Ashley got married at the community center in January. I heard it was nice. Simple. She and Kyle looked happy in the photos I saw online. I sent them a card and a gift. Life's too short for grudges, even when the grudge was deserved. My grandmother met James 2 weeks ago. She held him in the rocking chair on our porch and said, "He's got your grandfather's chin." He does not have my grandfather's chin. He's 6 weeks old and basically looks like a potato with eyebrows. But Grandma sees what she wants to see, and I love her for it. Holloway Farms sent us a 1-year anniversary card. Apparently they do that for all their couples. It was a nice touch. Riley put it on the fridge next to the ultrasound photo. Our whole story is on that fridge, honestly. The engagement photo, the wedding, the baby, and a magnet from a gift shop in the mountains that says, "I'd rather be hiking." We don't actually hike that much, but the magnet is funny. Would you have given in to the family pressure? Or held the line like we did? I keep thinking about those empty seats. And then I look at my son, and I know we made the right call. Also, Ringo does not like the baby. He tolerates him. He sits about 4 feet away from the crib and watches with this expression that can only be described as concerned supervision. He has not once tried to fetch James's socks, which is progress. But he definitely does not like him. We're working on it. Riley says they'll be best friends by summer. I'm less optimistic, but then again, Riley is usually right about these things. She's usually right about everything, including the venue. Here's the thing. Connor didn't need to share his wedding. He didn't need to apologize for booking a venue with his own money. And he didn't need to beg his parents to show up to the most important day of his life. But he did leave the door open. Every time they pushed, he said, "I love you, but no." And when the baby came, they walked through that door. That's not weakness. That's composure. That's the Kelly way. Drop a comment. Would you have let your parents back in after they skipped the wedding? Or would that bridge be permanently burned? Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.